Selamat siang Bapak Ibu sekalian. Sebagai informasi, kami akan memulai acaranya dalam sekitar 5-10 menit lagi. Dan kami juga menyediakan snacks apabila Bapak Ibu ingin mengambil konsumsi, terdapat di foyer di sebelah kanan. Dan untuk kamar mandi dapat diakses ke ruangan dari keluar dari foyer, belok kanan, kemudian ke kiri, dan di situ toiletnya. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to FPCI, and we would like to inform you that the event will start in approximately 5 to 10 minutes, and we would like to just inform you that we provide consumptions and snacks if you want to, and also the restroom could be accessed on the other side, on the right side of the hall. Thank you and enjoy the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, for any English speakers here who haven't got their interpreter device, you may raise your hands and our staff, Juan here, will assist you with that. Anybody got their interpreter device? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita akan memulai acaranya dalam sekitar 1 sampai 2 menit lagi. Mohon untuk kembali ke tempat duduk masing-masing. Terima kasih.
We will start the event in 1 or 2 minutes. Please return to your seat. Once again, to all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat because we will start the event soon.
Selamat datang Ibu Vivi.
Welcome, Ibu Vivi, Prof. Inya.
Silakan.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all in a healthy condition today and welcome in Bengkel Diplomacy Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, FPCI is a community or independent organization and non-government engaged in the international relations. FPCI is now the largest international community in Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and in the Pacific, with more than 100,000 in our network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And today we are going to get together to discuss and to exchange our views in the public discussion FPCI titled Developing JETP Scorecard for Indonesia's Climate Ambitions. Last year in November, Indonesia with International Partners Group or announced the Just Energy Transition Partnership in 20,000 US dollars. And before we start the discussion today, let's witness the video. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we also would like to announce that FPCI will conduct Indonesia Net Zero Summit 2023 next month. Indonesia Net Zero Summit, or ENPS, is a forum of primary climate, and this summit will be conducted on the 24th of June 2023 in Jakarta Theater, Jakarta. Now we have a sneak peek exclusive for the audience who are present in this public discussion concerning some panelists or speakers that will participate in that climate forum.
Ya, sekali lagi, mungkin boleh tepuk tangan dulu.
Let's give an applause. Once again, Indonesia Net Zero Summit will be conducted on Saturday, 24th of June 2023 from 8 a.m. up through 9 p.m. at Jakarta Theater with the theme It's Now or Never. For the public registration, please visit www.fpcaclimate.org. You could register at the www.fpcaclimate.org. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite Dr. Dino Patijalal as the founder and the chairman of Foreign Policy Committee Indonesia to deliver his opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be very short. I just want to welcome everybody here. I want to welcome Ibu Fifi from Bapenas. I know she's got a busy day today, but she still came, so thank you very much. Pak Gigi from ESDM. Yeah, thank you for coming, Pak Gigi. Enia from Habibie Center. Ibu Enia. And then D3, my good friend from JETP Secretariat. She's really a climate warrior. You know, before she had that job, we've been dealing with her for a long time, and her passion for climate agenda is really inspiring for us. Yeah, and also Tata from Greenpeace. Yeah, Ibu Pak Tata, terima kasih. Yeah. So you know, when South Africa got the energy transition program, $8 billion, immediately I said, oh, you know, it would be nice if Indonesia would get something like that. And in fact, Indonesia did get something like that, and with a lot more funds, actually. Yeah, we got $20 billion. And I think it's really a signal, a strong signal that the international community, especially the developed countries, first, they want Indonesia to succeed. They want Indonesia to have the successful energy transition. And it is our responsibility to make sure that this program works. The money is used effectively to deliver. And it's going to be a lot of work because the South African experience showed that, you know, it's not as easy as giving money and then things get switched on, right? There's a lot of interest and a lot of terms that have to be met, and it's a very complicated work. It's going to be very complicated. So I'm very glad that D3 is in JETP. She's got the right mindset and the right skill set, yeah. And I'm just glad that we are now moving on strongly with the JETP programs. I know there's a lot of embassies who are here, and there's a lot of climate activists. And I want to thank you and want to remind you that we're all in the same boat. We all have to reach this net zero world and net zero Indonesia by mid-century. I know Indonesia is 2060 or earlier, the target, but I'm very sure that that target is going to move in the coming years. Yeah. So with that, I welcome everybody, and let's have a good discussion going. Thank you.
Terima kasih atas remarks-nya, Pak
Thank you
Dino.
very much for your remarks, Pak Dino. Without further ado, now I'd like to invite Ibu Esther Tamara as the Director of FPCI Climate Uni as the moderator in this discussion. Ibu Esther, the floor is yours. Thank you very much to all colleagues who have come here. I see there are all friends from the activists, FPCC chapters. Did you
Friends here from UK, from Denmark, US, Japan, and so many others that are tuning in here offline and also in person. I firstly, sebelum kita mulai acara talk show hari ini atau diskusi hari ini,
now I would like to ask Pak Gigi, as the Director of Conservation and Energy from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, please, the floor is yours. Peace and blessings be upon all of you. Good afternoon. Greetings to all of us.
Should I speak in Bahasa really? But I would rather speak in English. Okay, but terima kasih Bapak Dino Patijalal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dino Patijalan, that you have invited me from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources.
Representing Pak Dadan, our Director General. I think it's also in line with the motto that we have to be open-minded and energetic. So I think today Pak Dadan has a very important trip to one of our geothermal power plant in ENG. It's very challenging location, but he achieved that. So today, just a brief. I think here we have a very important college and also very familiar face to me. If any Ibu Vivi colleague, quite a few times I met with, in particular, Pak August. And I'm just briefly, I think already mentioned a lot that why we are committed to the JETP program is because it is in line with our long-term commitment. In particular, by 2030, we already ratified the Paris agreements. By September last year, we submitted our revised NDC, Nationally Determined Contribution. We raised our ambitions to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 358 million tons CO2 emission by 2030 from the energy sectors. That's quite ambitious target. And we also identified that our colleague from Ministry of Environment and Forestry in the coming years, 2024 by the latest year 2025, will raise the ambition such that the Paris Agreement or the NDC will be in line with the trajectory, global trajectory of the meeting 1.5 degree maximum temperatures. So this is just, I think, already a subsequent event, but let's go directly to the JETP on the next slide. So this is our roadmap. I think Pak Dino already mentioned that we have a net zero emission roadmap, such that we will reach carbon neutral in the energy sector by 2060. Yeah. But 2060 is still a long way to go. So we have to work starting from today or even before. Yeah. So that's why we have support from the international, including from JETP, because we have a medium-term target 2030. As mentioned, we have an ambition to reduce emission reduction almost just below 400 million tons. And this is some even shorter target by 2025, that we have a target on the energy mix coming from renewable is 23%. And we understand that in order to achieve that, that's quite tremendous challenge, because as you are already aware that particularly right now we have experiencing some temporary overcapacity in our coal fleets, such that the amount of the capacity of a power plant from coal power plant is exceeding the projected demand. The projected demand is meaning that it's lower than what we anticipated when we plan or we developed such a infrastructures. But that's why we expected that through the JETP program, in addition to other programs like energy transition mechanism, we can propose submitted some list of projects that can be financed through a combination between grant, concessional loan, commercial loan. That's why we call it a blended finance, to reduce the number of such that we can retire some of our coal fleets or coal-fired power plant earlier than what they supposed to run based on their contractual concessional agreement or based on their technical lifetime. So here some of our strategy. Of course, we can discuss later. But on the next slide, this is I think it's one of the key milestones that was achieved during the Leader Summit G20 last year, and then it has been a few follow-ups. The first is it was JETP Secretariat that was launched in the 16th of February. 16th of February, hosted within the MEMR office. The term of hosted is very important because JETP is not belong to one single ministry. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources is providing its resources to provide the facility for the JETP Secretariat. So I think over time, there are some support to fill in with the structure of people and staff to run the Secretariat, because it has very important milestone by 16th of August to complete the comprehensive investment plans. I think we can see on the next slide. This is the 16th of February event. So I hope by 16th of August, we will see some more happier face when the CIP document is ready to be published. And on the next slide, so this is one of the key works that JETP is currently doing. So the structure, if you're looking at the top, so this is a combination between Indonesia with a partner country from IPG. And JETP Secretariat is sitting in between the policy level organization as well as what we call it project transactions. So on the left, this is what we are trying to emphasize. We are looking at projects from the early retirement, renewable energy development, grid connectivity, renewable energy supply chain. So we're hoping that through the JETP, we can attract foreign investment to develop renewable energy capability manufacturers within Indonesia as well. And just transition, so this is a dimension of a social and economic aspect, making sure that local people are also engaged, local government also engaged to support as part of the solution of the JETP. And lastly, this is part of the decarbonization on the demand sectors. So here we're talking about electric vehicles, for example, also talking about energy efficiency as part of the solutions. So there are quite a few boxes, but I will not go further. But here we can see a partner countries and organization, PLN, IPP, captive powers, as well as finance is from the local in particular is Sarana Multi Infrastructures. So a combination of structure of 20 billion is coming from grant, concessional loan, commercial loan as well. So, but equity and also loan. So this, we are hoping that by August, when we complete the CIP plan, we also seeing more clear on the right side. So because this is one of the key homework that everyone wanted to see, where is the source of fund, where is the structure of availability of fund. We are hoping that we will see it's coming when we complete our CIP plan. On the next slide, I think to prepare the comprehensive investment plan, there are at least now 4 working groups. The first is technical, led by IEA, a policy led by the World Bank, financing by ADB, and just transition is by UNDP. So of course there are some other members, including ISR from USAID, also Defense, EFW, etc., and also IndoDep is part of the technical working group that's also supporting these institutions, ADB, and also when it comes to electrification, like demand electrification and energy efficiency, there are still opportunity to add some more member and also participant in the working group. So in particular, we are the organization, not we are, JETP Secretariat is very open-minded and has to be filled in with energetic people who have. Okay, and on the next slide, I think that's what we hoping to see, that grid connectivity. This is because COP28 is not so far away, by end of this year. And we're hoping that by that event, we can do some showcase. This is very tremendous task that JETP Secretariat and team need to prepare, whether they will provide some showcase on the early retirement projects, combination with grid connectivity, or maybe some decarbonization of our captive powers, because captive power is, the term of captive power in JETP is a bit different because it refers to what utility power, non-PLN. So we have currently around 55 non-PLN utility that they will provide electricity, in particular for high demand for their respective industry, in particular for smelters. So this is area where, that's why the key project maybe will be in Sulawesi in the short term, because they are looking at enhancing transmission connectivity, as well as developing renewable energy from hydropower, solar PV, wind power, and other resources. And on the next slide, with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thanks again for the opportunity to deliver this very important message. Thank you.
Thank you. Dengan itu saya undang para panelis.
Now I would like to invite the panelists and the speakers to come forward, and then we will start the talk show.
Ya, silahkan duduk. Okay. It's free seating. Ayo, saya akan di. Baik, tadi kita sudah mendengarkan secara.
We already listened briefly what is the update and the progress that has been implemented of JETP. One of that would like to be achieved by FPCI today, how the information and the updates from JETP could be also be communicated to the community, because there are some curious what have been achieved when it is the first time announced of the JETP. And
Let me start with this first, dan mungkin ini lebih cocok ke antara Mbak Ditri atau Pak Gigi ya.
Baik, this is probably Pak Gigi and Pak Ditri, whether this $20 billion is already available and what is the status.
That's very important and very difficult question to answer. Ya.
Tolong dibantu mic-nya.
Ya, itu pertanyaan sangat penting dan mungkin semua orang juga
menunggu. A very important question and people is waiting for that. So probably some representative from the embassies could help answering this question. Well, actually, the 20 billion is what in which stage currently? This is the question that we would like to have information, a detailed information. And what is the detailed plan? Because it is probably difficult to answer, perhaps, as I mentioned earlier, we have everyone they have their own responsibility, their respective responsibility. We have target, which is important, and also the time is very limited. And their comprehensive investment plan, it will have list of projects which commercially and technically feasible to be financed through JETP. Our target, when I would that the expectation from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, we are going to prepare. We will help preparing a document that could be utilized by the candidate investor and also prospective financiers and lenders. That is our task. After August, then we will ask them. So ask them to realize that rather than we continue seeking information. So we will just try to finalize what is in front of our eyes. So there is groups that have been established and they have started working. So when we talk about the current situation, I'd like to add that when we talk about 20 billion, it is a framework that we have the target. This is reducing emission from the power sector by 2020. Then the emission in the power sectors in between 2035 up to 2040, especially in 2030, if we talk about net zero emission. As already mentioned many times, and we talk about 20 billion, actually it's not sufficient if we would like to reduce emission by 2030. So this is a kind of catalysator or accelerator of maybe the current programs also included in JETP. For example, from the assistance from the international partners, I no need to mention that it is part of grant. Most important is this CIPE finish, and so the scale of investment is greater, and I hope it could be supported from that 20 billion or from its syndication. 20 billion plus other syndication, maybe the total will meet the targets or the programs that have been listed. Thank you very much for the answer. Before we continue, now I would like to ask Ibu Fifi as Deputy from the National Planning Agency. We have a question and answer session. If you would like to ask directly to the speakers, you are welcome. Ibu Fifi, one of the programs of flagship of Bappenas is Low Carbon Development Initiative. So we see these initiatives with JETP. It is positive for the Indonesia climate ambition. How could we synergize between JETP and LCDI, and also about the just aspect in the just energy transition partnership? Thank you very much for this opportunity. Now I'd like to respond in 3 points. The first one, at the moment, we are preparing a long-term development plan 2025-2045. And we review what could be achieved. That is the energy mix of clean energy, where we are still far from the target, from 23% to only 12.3%. And so some indicators, we are still trying to achieve that. In the context, in the next 20 years, we talk about the transition energy is super important because energy is the blood for the development, because we would like to grow as high as possible. We would like to be out from the middle income trap. We would like to be an advanced country by 2045. So we try to by industrialization, and also we need the blood because we are committed from the global committed, not only SDGs or Paris Declaration, but there are also the derivative agreements. And so we all here should be united to to be the catalyst. So JETP is the catalyst for the accelerators of our effort to meet our commitment, and we could grow as high as possible, at least 7%, if we would like to be out from the middle income trap, but it has to be clean. The problem is that we are the country which is rich from the mineral resources. Our coal could by 2060 will still be sufficient, and it is cheap. Certainly, with that condition, in the 5-year development plan, it is the low development, low carbon. And so the transition we have started, and surely is not only from the center, but also will involve the regions through the LCDI, which is the last 5 years or the past few years. We have strived for collaboration and cooperation, and also the same understanding to the low carbon development, and at least in 10 provinces. So some have started and included that we would like to achieve the uh, new renewable transition, also the not only government, also household and private sector. We also circular economy, and also we also promote energy efficiency. So all that we have laid as the foundation of the energy transition, we put it in the National Development Plan, not only for clean energy, but also low carbon, or to mitigate the emission, and by 2060 or sooner, that we will be able to achieve net zero emission. And in the National Development Plan, we already give some directions like circular economy, clean energy, and also to use nuclear energy, because when we calculate, I think it is not enough if we only rely on the renewable energy. So when we talk about zero error, and there are 3 challenges, and we talk about energy transition during the drafting of the National Development Plan, green investment. Of course, we have to collaborate with other countries through G20. JETP is already committed to that. Hopefully, it could be realized and also optimized. And the number second, the challenge is the technology. Technology, there are so many of the technologies. I just discussed with Ibu Enia about the utilization of hydrogen, so about the interinsular vessels could be cleaner. And so that is the choice of technology that we have to select. And what is difficult is to prepare green job transition. Our country will become a country with the 6th largest populated. Now it's number 4. By 2045, it's number 6. So we still have a high population, highly populated. And we talk also about education. And it takes a village when we talk about energy transition. And point number 2, with regard to JETP, I would emphasize about the just. And I already mentioned there are some indicators that we already have. Actually, you could use framework from SDG. Number 7 offers some. There are 289 indicators in SDG. For goal 7 alone, the ratio already mentioned Pak Gigi, ratio power per capita. We talk, of course, about just what about the people in Papua that also have the power consumption the same as Jakarta, and there is 7.1.2, and people with the main synergy and with the clean energy. When we talk about converting from the wood to gas, that is an effort with which in the future could be further developed. And we in the RPGP, we promote Nexus Energy, Food and Water. So when we will like to develop food estate in NTT, we have to make sure that the water is available, and the water in NTT is not is in the it is, and they cannot, they have to deliver that use, we could promote the new renewable energy for our food security. And so there are some indicators in the SDG which is which is possible to develop. So we develop the just from JETP. Regarding JETP, as I mentioned, Indonesia is one of the countries with the mineral resources, especially coal. About the transitioning job, the coal, if you see the data in 2021, the state revenues has increased tremendously. So when we talk about early retirement from coal source energy, we also have to think, what about our revenues from the provinces and the regencies which are rich of mining, especially coal, so that it so that we make sure that the poverty will not increase, because there are in South Sumatra, which is the second largest province in Indonesia, the coal resources is high, but then apparently the poverty is high, and that's why JETP could be utilized how to empower people to take care of the transitioning of job from coal and then converting to clean. So it means like we talk about training and also coaching, and also from all of us here, not only from the government. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Prof. Enia, as the research professor from the National Research and Innovation Agency. We also listen that one of the target early retirement of coal. But I think you are all curious here. What is the role of the renewable energy, whether it could be accelerated by JETP? Perhaps Pak Gigi could give your comments in this matter. Thank you very much. We already listened from Mr. Gigi and Ibu Fifi. Pak Gigi about the financing, and I personally I'm hoping that from the point of view of technology innovation, I'm representing Habibie Center. We have to be able to do forklift to understand how just energy transition could be successful. And so with that big sum of money, we hope that there is effect, so there is multifunction economy. As I think that the funding is not free lunch, so there is something that is to be achieved, whether it is loan, because there are many issues about that, and therefore I think the multifunction economy will have to be emphasized. Concerning the technology, as already introduced by Bu Fifi, I agree that we have to prepare the existing technology. Then it will have to be promote the local industry so that that could utilize the JETP funding. And I see that the potentials are amazing. Not only people that have to be developed, certification, etc., will be required. The skills, the high skills will be required. For example, one that I do now, which is hydrogen energy, that will require higher skills. Hydrogen is not something new, but it has been done, only that it has not been utilized for energy. So technologically, we already close for utilization of hydrogen at the National Research and Innovation Agency. There are teams that have been established, and we not only going to the industrial sector, but to go also to transportation. But the mastering of technology, it should be on the key technology, key of technology, not only developing a concept of installation or a system that could be with that funds, but we have to master the key technology. And number two, the effect of the malfunction economy, it has to be felt up to the remote areas. So just energy transition has to be supported. Ibu Fifi already mentioned, not only us, government or research institute, but people and the community. I would like to say local champions, because in the regions they need human resources which are of high quality, that also could disseminate and could also assist the sustainability. Now we have heard about the power plant which is not continued because there is no maintenance from the local people. So we have to. It's important to be supported by all of us, and I hope that there is one decentralized energy. So decentralized energy. We mentioned about entities. So there is a good point of view. For example, how much the population, about the population, what is the habits, what is the resources. So decentralized energy could be an important point to develop a technology. For example, in the eastern part of Indonesia, because the intensity of like we could do photovoltaic, but in Kalimantan, Sulawesi could use geothermal or hydro, which later could become the sources for the later new energy. When we enter into hydrogen economy, all resources could be used in various sectors, industrial sector, transportation, and other sectors. In terms of technology, because the term just is not leaving coal, and so our natural resources of coal is large, even though I also see there is a phenomena which is Indonesia, the economy is supported by coal, and coal is still will have to be used if possible. We will reduce the utilization, but if there is a carbon capture, then it will have to be mastered. So we see the key, where is the key technology. Right now, Tokyo, they talk about hydrogen economy. They took it from Australia. In Australia, it is from produced from low rank coal. So the liquid we will send it from the low rank coal, but they conduct a technology carbon capture to produce blue. So Indonesia in the equator could become the energy hub for Asia and also in the Pacific, or so going everywhere. Not so. What about Japan taking it from Australia? It is so potential. Indonesia will have to be utilized. I think briefly, I see that just energy transition, there should be a growth industry using human resources and also utilizing all stakeholders. So that's all what I could mention now. Thank you very much, Prof. Enya. Very interesting all the points that you have submitted. I'd like to follow up about the carbon capture, but now we will come back to that. In the meantime, I'd like to ask to Pak Tata, as the senior campaign strategist Greenpeace International, what is the concern of the civil society concerning JETP? How to make more involvement from the civil society to make sure that JETP is good for our climate. Thank you very much, Ibu Esther. I'm representing Greenpeace International, but also as an Indonesian citizen that believes that the future of Indonesia will be determined by the success of all of us in conducting energy transition and also to managing this crisis. civil society organization, we have discussed a lot about JETP since, we already heard since June last year, June 2022, until it is finally, there is a commitment in November 2022 during the G20 summit. Basically, me and Greenpeace, we see there is a potential, especially last year, that JETP as the game changer of when there is a transition this not proceed. So I already mentioned we have to accelerate, we have to call phase out, we have, but a few times I wrote in the mass media and also in Jakarta Post about this matter. We hope that it could become a game changer, because since since 2 years ago, I see that the game, because I also see how the policymaker thinking about it and how they work. So show us the money. I think that's what to all the advanced countries. And to some extent, when we talk about the responsibility in overcoming this crisis, we can see there is validity when the Indonesian government is thinking about that. And we also have to see that civil society organization, we have formulated the values, the 5 values and the 4 principles, and it is potential to be able to be discussed and also to make it a scorecard, and how to plan and implement JETP Indonesia. I'd like to convey to you some matters which are of concern. We could also say concern or warning, or what are existing that could weakening, and also to fail the role of JETP that should have been game changer in the transition energy. We talk 2 things when we talk about JETP. First is the just, and number 2 is the acceleration from the energy. When we talk about just, then we have to have address in the planning and the implementation of JETP within the short term. The first is we have to realize that in the point 1, there is a global trend. When we talk DSG, environment, social, and governance, there is a tendency, and this is not only Indonesian, but globally, in only focusing to emission. There is an urgency here. And in the last report, we are already very critical. Then we also see that there are a lot of climate disasters, and so there is a local impact. For example, the critical mineral, and also they are ignored, but as long as the emission is reduced globally, and also when we talk about social, about the governance, about the anti-corruption, etc. What we have to pay attention to that there is, as long as the emission trend, the social and government doesn't really matter. If there is a local impact, local impact is not our priority. So that's what we have to pay attention to. We also have to understand that in JETP, the participation and accountability are the keys in the implementation. In the Indonesian context, JETP is working in the Indonesian democracy which is less functional. That's what we have to understand. So when we talk about transparency, then it will be challenging, and how JETP could initiate energy transition which is transparent, accountable, and participatory. So we have to also pay attention, and already discussed a lot, the risk of corruption in the energy transition within JETP. The economists mentioned that they need the big government, so the role of the government is extensive. So in the Indonesian context, where the prevalence of corruption is still high. So that is the second concern. And the third concern, and we talk about the composition, I'd like to ask the latest update. For organization, like Greenpeace, it is important to apply the principle when the largest amount of funding in the form of loans in the South Africa. I talked with the Greenpeace Africa. There are a lot of loans in Indonesia. Let's say 95% is loan. Then I'd like to ask, where is the, if it is loan and it is also paid by Indonesia, when we hope Indonesia have leadership in the energy transition, not only JETP, but we hope that there is a principle so that the country that have that the country that could pay. So this is a big question mark. And if it is on the other hand, whether there is a tendency, there is a bailout for coal. So there is a polluters and then there are paid, and it is possible if the indicators are not transparent, overpricing. So there are many issues here about the just. And so number two, after just, and also acceleration. When we talk about transition, we are already somewhat late, and we have to mitigate the climate as soon as possible. And what we have to pay attention to is there are efforts to make false solution in JETP and also in the energy policy, and this will may be able to give obstacle. Why don't we do renewable energy such as solar? And so there are many false solutions that we could discuss later, and this will become will be upsetting offsetting. For example, there is but because there are false solution, because for example we have to pay the loans which so this is the first challenge regarding the acceleration, because it's not going to accelerate, but if this will delay the transition, the energy transition. And for Indonesia, when we talk about JETP as the means for to accelerate energy transition, we are fighting for the direction. When we talk about other countries accelerate, but for us we are we see between 2017 2020 the capacity of coal, when the other JETP countries they're still using coal, but the capacity is always decreasing. Indonesia is one of the 4 countries, I think, with Turkey and India and China. Russia, India, China, if I'm not mistaken, Indonesia. One of the 4 countries of G20 between supply of coal between 2017 and 2000 is increasing, and so for us it is we are the highest 44%. So for during the 4 years during the first period, it is under the leadership of Jokowi. So it means like the homework of JETP as the means for energy transition as a game changer. They have a big homework, not only to accelerate, but we have to reverse. Thank you very much. So we have listened to the views of the panelists, and there is Ibu Ditri here as the Communication Director of JETP Secretariat. Ibu Ditri, perhaps you could respond some of the comments made. And what about JETP Secretariat what action will be taken by JETP? Thank you very much, Pak Gigi. I'd like to answer some of the questions. And today I'm here not as the Director Executive of Indonesia Cerah, but as the communication specialist from JETP Secretariat. And I'm here representing the chairman of JETP Secretariat, Mr. Edo Mahendra. Before I answer this question, I'd like to, there is a slide or a presentation. We try to operationalize what are the duties under the joint statement of JETP, and the main thing is to settle to finalize the plan, which is super tight. And so the decision maker is not with us. We report to just get to the task force carbonization already mentioned by Pak Gigi. One more thing that I'd like to add, and hopefully it could respond some of the concerns mentioned. But the structure of CIPP, it will revolve about the 5 investment areas. Prof. Enya mentioned about industry, about value chain. So if possible, JETP assists to develop value chain. So there is investment area, which is renewable area chain enhancement, how we could make a strategy in JETP and beyond JETP to support that area. And Kantata mentioned about the reversing the direction. So the issue is that now we have oversupply coal, and one investment area which is important in JETP is coal retirement. So one of the 5 investment areas in CIPP, and that's where we could reverse. So that is the first step for Indonesia to reverse the direction. And there are base load renewable energy and variable renewable energy, and what is and also important for acceleration and for utilization of renewable energy is transmission. It was already covered in the slide of Pak Gigi that the transmission, we need investment in our efforts to develop transmission about between the islands and also within a particular island, because there are a lot of gaps. So that's the key for the acceleration of the new and renewable energy. In these 5 investment areas, there is also a need for funding that will have to be identified, which is now still being calculated. Before the funding need, of course, there is the technical pathway, there is the roadmap in every investment area, and also narrowing to possible also to project. There is vaccine needs that would be identified, and so all of that will be covered under CIPP, and also the policy needs. Additionally, there is also just transition working group, as was already mentioned, that will try to identify what are the social economic impacts and environmental impact that will have to be paid attention in developing the 5 areas. Ibu Vivi mentioned transition aspect in terms of employment or labor. So from the 5 investment, there is impact, both negative or immediate, that will have to be mitigated and anticipated, and also the benefits if we could realize the plans of the project in respective investment area, how could we optimize? So it is in the 16th of August, it's available in CIPP. So the deadline is very close. So I'd like to, about the consultation aspect. So about the communication specialist, so we handle consultation. JETP Secretariat also is a mandate from the joint statement to enforce the principle of transparency, participation, and inclusion. And there will be many consultation rounds. The consultation run directly done by Secretariat, JETP Secretariat, or consultation conducted by each working group, whether it is on behalf of the Secretariat or on behalf of each working group. So the members of working group already mentioned by Pak Gigi. So there is the development. So there are some that have been listed there, but basically, because we have to move fast, there are so many consultation that will happen simultaneously, and also So a public forum like this assists us, really helping us, like done by FPCI. Like any other day, there is public forum about the energy transition or JETP. So this will be beneficial and will be helpful for us to narrow the CIPP. But most importantly, that we also need support to make sure not only JETP, but the energy transition in general will become the hottest slice of bread, and also have support from the community at large, because this support will be beneficial for the smooth running of the project and to be able to optimize us in drawing investment and also technical capacity to realize the project. That's all from me. Thank you very much, Maditri.
And I didn't realize that time went by so fast. Jadi what we're gonna do adalah kita akan membuka langsung ke sesi pertanyaan.
Now I would like to immediately go to the answer and question answer session. So if there is an audience that would like to ask, you could raise your hand. So we will take one of the one in the on the left hand side, and also from Green Economy Youth Organization, and we can choose two more. Please give the mic. Ibu Deputy will have to leave the place now. So first, I would like to ask the Deputy could go first. Please mention the name, institution, and also give a clear question. I'm Andri Prasitan from Trend Asia. My question is that there are actually some questions from me. First, I'd like to ask about the funding resource. With the JETP, there are a lot of rumors that this is there are old funds that will be mobilized and will be managed, for example, from GIF, etc. Is that true? And number two, about in the joint statement, JETP is set not only for early retirement only, but for deploying green projects. To which extent that JETP will define green project, because we know that Indonesia will make early retirement of this steam power plant, 5.5, the target. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe the government has a more ambitious target, but in the captive side, in the industrial side, there are 12.8 in the study from Transasia, 12.8 will for the new coal power. Could that be support for smelter for green project? At the same time, the smelter is connected with the coal power plant. And the next one is about the gas. The gas is not clear. We are still waiting response from the representative of embassy whether supported or move from renewable. We see from the latest development, the government put JETP to finance the diesel going to GAT. Why not renewable? Because it will be replaced by renewable. Thank you very much. But the second question to Dio. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Sudirham dari Green Economy, and also representing our friends from SRE, University of Indonesia. The economic development and human resources need involvement from stakeholders as a measure to make sure collaboration and involvement of the community elements in making so that the objectives is achieved. One is youth. With the JETP that have billions of dollars, whether the funding will only focus to the national strategic project, or the allocation of the funds will also include for human empowerment and development in the energy transition, and how much is the commitment of the government if it is under the allocation of the funding scheme. As already mentioned by Ibu Deputy, youth are those who will support the policy development policy Indonesia. Two more questions. and also the person in red. Good afternoon. Talking about the climate, please mention your name. I'm Kurniawan. Talking about the climate crisis, I see that the traffic jam in Indonesia is getting worse. This is also related to transport industry from Korea, Japan, India, Malaysia, China. How the government would respond this regarding the air pollution from the carbon emission, and also to increase CO2. And for me, I see that, for example, that the cigarette industry, because it is difficult to so because there is demand and supply, so we cannot stop that. So how the government see this about the transport industry, which is there is investment, but at the same time it is damaging the environment. Thank you very much, Pak Kurniawan.
Ya, selamat siang. Perkenalkan
Good
saya
afternoon.
Amber
I'm
dari
Ardi
Global Energy
from
Think Tank.
Global
Pertanyaan saya
Energy
mungkin
Think Tank.
pertanyaan saya mungkin
My
Mas
question
Andri dan Pak
to
Gigi ya.
Mbak Ditra and Pak
Sebutkan
Gigi.
tadi dari
So
Mas Andri ya dari
from
Tranasia
Mas
yang
Andri
mengatakan
from
kebocoran
Transasia
SPU
about
khususnya captive
the
coal
steam,
also yang
especially
sudah di
captive coal,
pipeline di
and
daerah
that which is already in the
Sembulan itu ya.
pipeline,
Cuman
because in the
yang
president
sebelum
regulation,
dibangun itu
it
yang
is
diberhentikan atau gimana dalam
before
pembangunan
it is
pembangkit
not
listrik
yet
tersebut.
constructed, it will
Pertanyaannya
be stopped. But then if it
dengan
is in the
adanya
pipeline,
JETP
it will
kan
be
juga
continued.
digunakan
About the
sebagai
JETP
untuk
funding,
produksi
which
lagi
is used for
untuk
the early
power
retirement of
kendaraan
the
listrik. Nah, ini
steam power
PJDR-nya
plant,
sudah
whether
direnegosiasi dengan pihak deal
PLJP
atau memang
already
hanya
negotiated
akan
is
fokus
more
untuk
just, or the
buying
money
out
will be finished just buying out
coal power plants
coal power
buying
plants,
out
buying out
PPA contracts yang emang udah unfair
PPA
dari awal
contract, which
atau
is unfair
perlu
from the
buat
beginning.
renegotiate dulu.
But
Itu
actually,
aja.
there is now time to renegotiate. Ibu Deputy, perhaps you could answer that first. Thank you very much for the question. I'm just going to answer in general. First, highlighting the participatory inclusiveness are important. Early retirement of the power plant in one area will reduce the government revenues from that area. That if it is not taking if it is we are not going careful, it means like we'll remove the basic service, and then the people will also impacted. And so at any level, inclusiveness is important, and youth should have their innovation and how to the principle, how to reduce emission. And we talk about the carrying capacity, there are two. We know that we have abundant resources, but how to manage the emission, it should be balanced. And so industry will have to increase their capacity to install the tool, for example, that, and also circular economy to reduce the emission. And number two, regarding investment, I once made a pipeline of the renewable energy projects. There are because the values are small, and so it is like distributed around Indonesia. But then when we meet with the investor, so about the renewable energy, there is a small scale and large scale. So with JETP, we could facilitate what is the right size, when to meet up with the investor. One more thing about JETP, the implications, national grid. When we talk about renewable energy, hydrogen, etc., we talk about when there is the inequality about the energy resources between the islands. But hydrogen, because the people a lot in Java, and so this is one of the breakthrough that we could do together. I'm sorry that I have to run to another place. Thank you very much that you are here with us today.
Berikutnya mungkin
Next, there are two questions that addressed to Pak Gigi and Ibu Ditri.
Baik, terima kasih. Tanya banyak tapi
There were a lot of questions.
mulai dari yang belakang dulu ya.
So I'll start with the last question, which is about transportation.
Di grup itu ada yang kelima
In the working group,
sama EV gitu ya. Kalau kami juga berharap sebenarnya nanti makanya kita punya periode 3 bulan ya.
we have 3-month period
CIP tadi
to finalize
Fitri ya.
CIP.
Ini kesempatan, salah satu kesempatan dan momen bagi
We have an opportunity.
publik untuk memberikan
There is an opportunity for public to give input.
Grup, ada Bu Ditri, ada Pak Edo
There is Ibu Ditri, Pak Edo Mahendra,
pelaksana JETP
as the related to the implementation. So the proposals or innovative ideas could be proposed regarding transport program. Government have programs.
ada program bantuan pemerintah
There is also government assistance about electric vehicles.
itu juga menjadi salah satu solusi
So this is one of the solution
yang kita sudah
beyond the solution that we all know.
mau changing ke dari ke individu ke
This is
public transport itu juga salah
this is changing to go using public transport for individuals.
emission ya kita bahwa electrification EV itu
And
mengurangi menyelesaikan
also reduce emission electrification
dalam urban area gitu.
in the urban area
Transformasi yang terus menerus
by
dari sisi
transformation in the supply.
dekarbonasi
I hope that it will be able to do decarbonization.
chain dari penyedia listrik sampai dengan utilization-nya. Itu yang pertama. Terkait dengan
That is first related to
dan ini
transport.
tidak bisa dilepaskan juga
Maybe
dengan
that is also related to
pipeline
pipeline,
ya. Kita seperti di Perpres 112
as mentioned in presidential regulation.
dari pengembangan batu bara adalah
What is expected from the development of coals
kalau kita bicara LPT PLN khususnya
when we talk about the business plan, business project which is under construction or already,
proses finansial
which is already a process of financial close. So it means like showing the commitment of Indonesia
off-taker dengan
to off-taker with the
kalau misalnya
partner
partner IPP itu dengan
from the partner EDB
finansial institusi
and supported by financial institution,
GBI Export Credit Agency ya yang mensupport untuk finance
an agency that
support untuk
provides support, financial support to renegotiate or to discuss.
sifatnya business to business.
This is a business to business and voluntary,
Kita sebagai
and so cannot,
pemerintah menghentikan proyek-proyek yang
and so the government cannot just
karena itu nanti
stop the project which have been agreed, as there are
Indonesia.
implications.
Nah, itu terkait dengan kalau kami mungkin sedikit yang mungkin part of topic juga bahwa tadi Bu
This is also,
Prof ini ya juga menyebutkan bahwa kita
it was also mentioned about decarbonization.
dari oil atau langsung ke renewable
And
kita saat ini mungkin sedang mencari juga solusi
currently, we are also trying to find solution. The
dua kecil tidak semua renewable tersedia
the
gitu ya. Tidak semua
renewable are already available.
solar maupun
There is
hydro.
potential of solar or hydro.
Nah, kalau kita cari solusi misalnya
When we
kita
try to find a solution
produksi
that
hidrogen
we
misalnya,
develop
tempat
hydrogen
transportasi
from other place and then we transport to that location, and so it is commercially feasible, and so perhaps it could be proposed, which is now up to August you can submit your proposal, and we could develop hydrogen from the existing one which is already in operation for a long time. So commercially it is has achieved break-even point. So
produksi hidrogen menggunakan
kita produce hydrogen.
Prof lebih paham beberapa
Perhaps
metodenya untuk diterapkan
perhaps
secara
you
jangka
already
panjang.
understand that economically it is viable.
Solusi dari
But so that's the
renewable gas ya, salah satu
offer solution from renewable gas.
tapi kita juga harus acknowledge bahwa
But we have to
gas itu
also
adalah
acknowledge
fuel,
that
bahwa
gas
itu
is
masih
transition
mengandung
fuel. That
dosen
it
karena
is
tidak semua bisa di cover langsung dari misal batubara
because
langsung ke
because not
karena
all
salah
cannot
satu
apply
sinergi
from
dari
coal
solusi
using,
ultimately nanti akan beralih ke renewable
although ultimately it will
dan kita jangan lupa bahwa
change to
tadi
renewable
Prof
energy.
sampaikan kenapa dari
As already mentioned, the
kita
Japan
sekali
took it
evolusi
from
ya dari
Australia.
kita punya potensi
We have the
lokal
potential
untuk storage 12,2 miliar
12.2
dan dari
billion
depleted oil and gas itu 2,5
from oil and gas,
lebih konkret lagi
12.5 billion.
15
So
15 pilot
before 2030, we have 15 pilot projects.
CO2
We could
adalah antara 25 sampai 68
between we
juta
could
ton.
25
Sekarang
to
pemerintah
60
sedang
million
memikirkan
tons.
bagaimana kita bisa
Government
mengkomersialisasi
is now trying
net
to
sell CO2 storage
commercialize
di Indonesia.
the storage
Baik
which is
itu
available in Indonesia,
permanent storage,
whether it is
kombinasi
permanent storage which is
enhanced gas
combined
atau
with
carbon.
enhanced
Nah,
gas.
kita sedang cari mekanisme perdagangan karbonnya.
We are trying to
Tentunya
see the
sesuai dengan
carbon
kesepakatan
trading,
Paris Agreement, apakah
which
itu
is in line with the Paris Agreement.
G2G maupun 6.4 voluntary carbon market.
G-
Nah, itu sesuatu yang barangkali
Carbon market.
pada momen ini kami juga ingin encourage atau
We would also like in this opportunity to encourage,
kira-kira
and we would like you to
variable
give
carbon
input
market, carbon trading itu bisa menjadi salah satu
so that carbon market and
bagian dari
carbon
solusi
trading,
untuk
which is
accelerate
part of the
transition
solution to accelerate
demikian.
energy transition in
Makasih,
Indonesia.
Gigi.
Thank you very much, Pak Gigi, Ibu Ditri.
Makasih Pak Gigi.
Thank you
Sepertinya
very
Pak
much,
Gigi
Pak
sudah
Gigi.
cover
I think
hampir
Pak Gigi
semua
has covered
pertanyaan
almost
substansi.
all the,
Kalau
has
dari
answered
saya
all
mewakili
these
JETP Sekretariat,
questions.
mau ucapkan
From
kembali
JETP
bagaimana
Secretariat, I'd like
investasi
to talk about
yang
the 5
jadi
investment
fokus
areas
dalam
which are the
CIP.
focus
Tadi
in
yang
the
pertama adalah
CIP.
transmisi,
First is
kemudian
transmission
grid deployment,
and grid
terus
deployment,
kemudian yang kedua
and number
adalah
2 is
pemensiunan dini PLTU batubara
early
di
retirement of
sektor yang
the
sangat penting
coal,
ini.
which is
Terus
important, and
ini masih
also
pertanyaan tadi soal definisi green project.
about
Poin
definition of
menarik
green projects.
antara dua ini kalau kita bisa
So between these two, when we talk
adalah
about the
base load
renewable energy, base
contohnya
load,
pengembangan
the renewable energy, for
PLTU
example, the development of
hydro,
the hydro
kemudian
power plant
pengembangan PLTU panas
or
bumi, gitu
or
ya, dan
geothermal
mungkin bentuk-bentuk
power
base
plant,
load
and
energi
also
terbarukan lainnya gitu ya.
the other
Nah,
base load
kemudian yang kedua adalah
renewable energy. And number 2,
variable renewable energy di sini adalah
variable
wind
renewable energy is
yang
wind and solar
menjadi
that
topik
is
diskusi ya.
often
Tapi tidak
be
menutup
discussed.
kemungkinan bisa juga
But there is
memasukkan
also
dukungan
possible
terhadap
to have support
beberapa
from
jenis teknologi yang sifatnya masih baru,
other new
misalnya
types of
ocean,
technology,
gitu kan, dan
for
sebagainya.
example, ocean,
Nah, mungkin
etc.
juga tadi pertanyaan terkait dengan definisi green
But
project.
the definition of green
Kan,
project, it
ini
is
soalnya kekhawatiran yang diangkat adalah soal
because the
smelter. Itu bisa membiayai smelter apa enggak?
the
Yang
concern is whether they
jelas
could finance
adalah
smelter or not. What is
nama
clear
dari
now is
investasinya itu aja
the it is
renewable
called
value
renewable
chain
value
enhancement gitu.
chain
Jadi
enhancement.
kalau dia
And so
terkait hilirisasi
so
mineral
if it
gitu
is
ya,
about the
itu saat ini yang jadi
mineral,
fokus bukan itu. Yang jadi fokus adalah soal local manufacturing
it's about the
capability
local
development yang kita
manufacturing capability
arahkan untuk teknologi-teknologi
that
energi
we will
baru
be
yang memang
directed to the
didevelop
renewable
under base
energy,
load
which is
dan
under base
variable
load
RI gitu. Karena
and the
tadi
variable
ternyata soalnya sama
RI.
sekali belum
Because
jelas ya.
we talk
Kalau di
about
luar
20 billion, if it is beyond that,
itu hal lain gitu.
it
CIPP
is a
fokusnya
different
saat ini adalah
VIPP at the
mengoneksikan
moment focused to
20
connect
miliar tersebut
the
gitu ya
20 billion
ke arah dan trajektori transisi
to the
energi
trajectory of
terbarukan. Jadi
energy
kita hanya
transaksi
mungkin di CIPP membicarakan
in
20
total.
aja gitu kan, nggak semuanya. Terus tadi soal pertanyaan
And also
soal
about
human development,
about
sepertinya
human
itu akan masuk
development,
tapi belum
it
bisa
will
dipastakan
cover that,
berapa
but we still cannot mention how
besar
much is the allocation, what is the
karena itu semua masih
approach,
digodok
and it
CIP-nya.
is
Nanti
still
16
now
Agustus akan
being
lebih
discussed.
jelas
And
gitu
also
ya.
it will
Dan
be in
yang
August, it will be more clear. And
terakhir
the last
mau
one,
menegaskan kembali
I'd
apa yang
like to
dikatakan Pak Gigi
also
soal memberikan
confirm
masukan. Jadi
about
saat ini
giving
sekretariat
input.
sangat terbuka
Now the Secretariat is very open for the technical input. We need proposals, innovative proposals about the project. And if there is analysis or thinkings about the other aspects, especially about the just transition, it is very mostly welcome. You could reach out to me and the Secretariat. Pak Gigi already mentioned the location at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, and you could reach out to me and we could start the discussion. What is clear that we are open for your input.
Terima kasih Bu Ditri. Prof.
Thank you,
Enia
Ibu
bisa
Ditri.
memberikan komentar
Prof.
juga.
Enia,
Nanti
could you
kapan-kapan
please
saya juga
give
akan minta
comments? I'd
membahas
like
juga
to
apa-apa yang
also
disampaikan Ibu.
discuss about the principles.
Oke, baik. Saya mungkin menanggapi beberapa hal.
I'd like to give response about a few things
Penyelesaian secara teknologi.
about the
Kalau saya melihat there is no single
finalization
Jadi,
solution, technology
sebenarnya
solution. There is
disebut
not
tadi
one
coal
single
mining,
solution.
membuat
When you
kita
mention
perlu
about the
khawatir
coal,
terbuka. Soalnya
maybe the
secara
Greenpeace friends should
teknologi
not be worried
teknologi
because
kita itu masih
technology,
30% 50%
our
saja.
power plant is only
Jadi
using
yang
it
itu
30
harus
to 50%.
diganti
After that, it will have to be
color-color
replaced
barunya itu karena
the
problemnya terlalu
chimney,
banyak
etc. Because there are a lot of problems.
kalau saya
And
melihat potensi
when I see the potential of the change of the steam power plant, it is going to ammonia, hydrogen potentially, and there is no carbon. So that's the so there is no use of carbon in the steam power plant. And so if it is co-firing is included as false solution, it is maybe they're just making efforts. So at least it's just reduce the emission. And I appreciate all the efforts to reduce the emission, even though I agree with you that life cycle assessment will have to be considered. When we talk about green hydrogen, it is no more green, it's not greener than gray hydrogen. So when we review it directly, so we are still being discussed. I'm also in the task force, the level G20, and so we are now calculating. All the world is still calculating. There is no definite response, but the life cycle assessment have to be thought and
masalah tadi berhitung dari
about the calculating about the
utilization
utilization of energy
berharap
about base load. Base load,
kita bisa berharap
we
secara priority
could
kepada
hope priority the hydrogen
pada
and
saat orang
geothermal.
bicara
But when people talk about the solar and about wind turbine, when
sekarang masalahnya adalah intermittent.
this is the issue is intermittent. When we talk about long-term energy storage system by using electrolysis, it is could be a solution. So all energy resources.
Istilahnya resepnya lah gitu ya.
So there is, like a recipe. For example, in an island, how much how big is the island? Maybe there is excess of electricity from the power. So electricity should be converted to gas to fill in the shortage of gas rather than idle. And therefore investment is not working. That could be done, and the efforts rather than resize the electrical supply in every island, which is from different sources, it could be done one study. The study will have to determine the size of the energy needs requirements in each location. There are a lot of industries, they come to us. What is the roadmap of the energy and mineral resources? So we are, so Pak Gigi, I'm waiting for, so the roadmap, it will determine investment. So when they see roadmap, established, and then it is following that direction. So this is important, the direction from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Investment for investors. So that is one point. And I'd like also to give comments about transportation. The efforts of the government, there are many, by fuel, electric vehicles, and also there are some incentives. So the efforts will have to be from various directions, because in Indonesia just is limited. It's not unlike in Japan, because there is a protocol. Then they give a commitment that the transportation entering Tokyo will have to be with gas for the logistic. So this is an effort to reduce the emission. So one step. In Indonesia, that doesn't work. And therefore, we jump to electric vehicle, which is already supported. And here, electric vehicles, this is intermediate. This is in the future. And when I see this in the transportation sector, the use of hydrogen will become something that will have to be thought of, because it is long distance transportation could be used, and there is no carbon. So we have to make such comparison. What is most difficult? Because they will say that this is so mineral based. Battery, we will also use mining, and there is also need large energy. And so the calculation of life cycle assessment will have to be announced, so that people can find the routes. So I hope the carbon market could support all, because the answer is in carbon market. We made calculation. If carbon market is about 40 or 30 or even higher than that, it will be better. It will be able to, so that hydrogen economy could start. So this figure will have to be, we have to calculate, recalculate, and there are also various stakeholders could support. So that's my response. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much. So I just would like to, from Mas Andri, because we talk about some principles. Actually, principles have been talked about. Actually, it could be, we could make some indicators out of the principle, and how we could measure and also could evaluate the implementation of JETP Indonesia. There are a number of things. When we talk about the source of funding, let's say $20 billion United States dollars, American dollar, we need additional money. In JETP, polluters pay. They want to, so this is our duty to encourage other countries to be able to realize that. And so the advanced countries, they are sometimes a bit naughty, and some we talk about the ecological just. It has been agreed in the coalition CSO about energy transition, which is just and sustainable. When we talk about early retirement, say 5.5 gigawatt through JETP, also what is a captive. So this is actually contradiction. And when we talk about the use of resources, actually this is inefficiency of the use of resources. When we are still PL, which is outside the state electricity, and this is based on the values. JETP have to be transformative, will change the system comprehensively, and we have to also conduct reform in the policy and institutionalism. And about gas specifically, it is important because at present, the global trend, especially the multinational and national oil, that they increase gas exploitation. Indonesia and Southeast Asia will become the target for the demand of the gas. And this is also important in the overall system that we could jump to the real one. So this is the key, especially if JETP so JETP funds uses for the transition of gas. So this is one of false solution. And so we're seeing the global trend is possible because the gas producer, some G7 countries that will encourage Indonesia to use gas. What we have now in the coalition Indonesia, the 5 values, which I think it is the basic values that then from there we could make identical, accountable, transparent, and participatory. This is the key because from there is a correction, monitoring.
Cara market, ini so apa kalau kita bicara JETP ini sebagai
And we talk JETP is a market for overcome the crisis and to accelerate the energy transition. So the market will be better. And so this is the key about the first value. And the second value, because this is related to just and in the massive process and also in a hastily during the energy transaction, we have to pay attention to human rights. So there should not be practices or operation which is irresponsible. And so, and we have to mitigate the and also about just in economy, how I could make it affordable, and also transition in the areas which depend on the production of fossil fuel like coal, and the last one, it have to be transformative. So in overall, so the principle there are 4. Could be a bit, make it brief into 3. As already mentioned by Pak Gigi dan Ibu Ditri, there should be acceleration and early retirement of coal, and we also have to reduce in stages until 0 the production of coal. Now we are not in the right trajectory because the production of our coal is increasing continually, and we do not, and also reform of the institutionalism and policy. And the last one from me is what we need to do is, because this is a personal experience, when we talk about solar energy, what we have to do is the government give incentive and support. My personal experience, my house, fully renewable, on grid, I only pay the subscription, minimum fee, administration, but it is possible, it is renewable. And then it is really safe. If you live in Jabodetabek, if you want to install solar panel, then you cannot. So it is like there is obstacle to do that. So Ministry of Environment is supporting, but then the state electricity do not support that. So this process should be made in stages, so involving all parties. This is complex, but then we should not delay or should not impede the transition process. So this is now 12 minutes way overdue. Jadi I would like to ask the panelists, to Pak Gigi, how we Indonesian citizens,
Ya, warga negara Indonesia, banyak pemuda juga.
there are also a lot of youth and civil
organization
society organization. How could they support JETP is successful? I hope Mbak Ditri also could answer this question. Thank you very much. This is brief from me. This is, I hope JETP is part of the solution to support the efforts of Indonesia for decarbonization. In more concrete, could support to achieve the target by 2060 or sooner. The principle, and when we talk about key performance indicator, we would like to see that the principles of just transition or net zero emission, we reduce the emission by developing a new renewable energy, cleaner fuel, but we also make sure that it is in line with the preservation of the nature. So nature positive is important. If we develop thousands of hectares for the solar power plant, and we have to pay attention for the environment as well. So that's a principle. And then we go to the next principles. We also would like to see showcase. There should be transaction as the, so it was also emphasized during the meeting with John Kerry in G7. COP28 should be showcased, which is credible, which is financed by JETP. And other indicators, how much renewable energy is to be developed, and juga electrification project, demand sector. We hope that could also support local manufacturers in Indonesia. That's all from me. And it is related to the energy management, because I'm in the energy conservation. There should be energy conservation as well. Thank you very much, Pak Gigi. I have difficulty. Pak Gigi already mentioned not only complete, but also it's like it is beautiful. It's nature positive. So I have taken notes. I'd like to repeat the appeal to all the friends and also for those who listen today to actively give us input. And later I will share the email address of the secretariats and also my personal email address, because we have homework about the digital infrastructure is being developed, and in turn there will be consultation sessions, and there is one objective for those who would like to engage the secretariat to give input to the secretariat. Once again, to confirm that secretariat is not the policy, the decision maker, but we process that. And what I'd like to add that there are a lot of friends that have really amazing and thinking, and apart from the thinking that we need is the evidence. If there is a study and there is the results of the modeling and also scientific studies, please pass it on to us. So this is part of the reference that this is the basis for the renewable energy. Maybe there are engineers who listen to this forum as well, and the stages we are now collecting all the scientific studies as well as relevant studies and also modeling exercise to determine the technical roadmap. And there is aspects of policies. The studies are being collected, and the studies, the thinkings, framework And if you have it, kindly share it with us. There will be our basis in finalizing this. CIPP is, it doesn't mean that we determine the last form, but it depends on and the decision maker at the ministries, and one of them is the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. But as I already mentioned, Secretariat is the one that facilitates that, then assisting in collecting and processing, and also put it in writing actually. And so that's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mbak Ditri. And I'd like to add about the lifestyle. So please change your lifestyle. Starting now, do not use public transportation. This is part of our efforts in support reducing emission. We, Ibu, Pak Ditri, it is clear, without, if we do not support that, it will not be able to be realized. So energy efficiency, do not open your refrigerator too often. It's from, we have to change. Thank you very much.
Please give a warm round of applause for our panelists today.
Please give an applause to our panelists. Some key takeaways is the Secretariat JETP and SDM are open for all your inputs. So we're waiting for the invitation for public consultation, and it is important, as mentioned by Pak Tata and Prof. India, then how we can champion our local communities in the JETP process. And the last one, FPCI, is always in good spirit to assist the government so that to accelerate the reduction of emissions, so that it could be could sooner we could handle, manage the climate increase.
Okay, one more thing.
For the email of JETP Secretariat, all questions could be addressed, as already mentioned, could be addressed to JETP Indonesia at esdm.co.id.
Nanti kita juga bisa sebarluaskan surat
So we could also disseminate to those who register. Thank you very much. I'd like now to invite Pak Dino to give the souvenir to all the panelists. So these are unique merchandise.
Open it.
Tepuk tangan sekali lagi untuk
Once again to all the panelists that have the discussion today. Please give an applause. And to all of you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the FPCI discussion. Once again, please give an applause to the panelists. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is captures the moment today. Please tag us in the Instagram. You could tag us in social media, Instagram and Twitter. Thank you very much for your attendance. See you again in the next event.
For all of the diplomatic corps who use the interpreter devices, please, you may come to the right side of the room and return the devices to our operators. Thank you very much.